Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Nostalgia Theater. My name is Zaki Hassan, and this is episode 2 of the show. Before we get started, I just want to thank everybody for the tremendous response we've gotten to our first episode from 2 weeks ago. It's been not just overwhelming, but incredibly heartening. So keep the emails coming, keep the comments coming, keep the iTunes reviews coming. Also, if you have any suggestions for future installments, topics you'd like me to cover, guests you'd like me to talk to, send them my way at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. I will do everything I can to try and accommodate it. I'm casting as wide a net as possible. So with that out of the way, let's get to it. Episode 2, let's start the theme music.
Zaki Hassan is your host on this most epic journey through pop culture's past. Hold on to your butts. This is Nostalgia Theater.
Brought to you by the Movie Film Podcast.
Power on. Captain Power and the soldiers of the future.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Nostalgia Theater. Thanks so much for joining us for our second episode. And you heard the music up top. Today we are talking about a show that changed the world. Well, it changed my world anyway. I'm talking about Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future. Captain Power premiered in syndication on September 1st, 1987. And it was a live-action TV show, which was fairly rare for children's programming. And it was fairly ambitious with execution that, by the way, came from head writers J. Michael Straczynski and Larry DiTillio. It was created by Gary Goddard, who also directed the live-action Masters of the Universe movie, which also came out that year. Captain Power chronicled a dark future where a Terminator-esque war has left human civilization in ruin. Pockets of survivors are systematically tracked down by their new machine overlords. This tale of post-apocalyptic survival was steeped in commentaries on genocide, fascism, collaboration, betrayal. It even culminated with the shocking death of a long-standing character. This is dark stuff, especially for, again, what was supposed to be a kids' show. Now, leading the resistance for 22 action-packed episodes was our titular hero, Jonathan Power, played by Tim Dunigan, who, along with his 4 teammates, utilizes the new power suit technology to strike back, lead guerrilla attacks, and just generally try to reclaim the planet. And I could not be more honored to be joined by Captain Power himself, Tim Dunigan. Thank you, Tim, for joining us on Nostalgia Theater.
It's my pleasure to be here, Zaki. Thanks for asking me.
So just to give a little bit of context about where you were at before Captain Power. Now, you had been acting for a couple of years. It's worth pointing out you played Face in the pilot of the A-Team.
That's correct. I was in the pilot of the original A-Team. I played that role. I did the 2-hour movie. And then after we got back from filming that, Steve Cannell and NBC decided to, which is not actually at the time, of course, being a young actor, it was quite devastating, but it happens quite often. And I was, of course, very sad and upset about it. But, as years go on, you realize that some things happen for reasons. And I suppose if I had continued with the A-Team, I never would have gotten to play on Captain Power or many other shows, Davy Crockett, a lot of things like that. So, that's Hollywood. Like I said, though, as a young actor, I'd never been fired from any type of job in my life. I grew up in the Midwest. We were, you're raised to do your job and do it the best you can. And I had always tried to do that. But that they decided there was a couple of things that just wasn't working for me in that role. And they felt the show would be better with Dirk Benedict, which I think their choices proved to be true. The show ran for a long time and continues to be a huge hit in syndication and today. So that's just the way it goes. It's a business, and I had come out of the theater. I was a theater actor. I had trained at the Webster Conservatory in St. Louis Theater. Worked with the St. Louis Repertory Company at that time, called the Loretta Hilton Theater Repertory Company. And, I was in New York. I had never had any thoughts of working in TV. I was a stage actor. And so it was one of my first, it was my first real big job. And so to lose it in that manner it was tough, but you things are given to you to make you challenge life, and it was a challenge for me. But you moved on and you did the best you could, and I was lucky. I continued to do a lot of stuff, so it was okay.
So between the A Team and of course Captain Power, I mean you were a regular presence on a whole variety of TV shows that are very well known, especially to people who grew up during that era. I mean, The Fall Guy, Cheers, etc. So you weren't a stranger to viewers at that time. But what was the circumstance in which Captain Power happened?
Captain Power happened. It was another audition. As you said, after I did the A Team, and then I started actually at the same time I was doing the A Team. I had already been a reoccurring character on another show called Wizards and Warriors, which also
I remember that well. Yeah.
Has Jeff Conway and Walter Olkowitz. And I had gotten a reoccurring role on that as Prince Jeffrey, which was just, so much fun. Don Rio and Judy Allison were the producers and writers on that. And I was filming actually, and then while I was filming that show, I got the audition for the A Team, and I was actually going back and forth doing both shows at the same time, and being, very naive. I thought, well, that's just the way it was. You work a couple jobs at once. But, that time I look back now and think, wow, that was really something. But once the A Team ended, I went and I started just doing a lot of guest star things. You do an episode here, an episode there, whatever it was. And then I got a series for NBC that was done by Ed Weinberger and Stan Daniels, who are the same guys who did Mary Tyler Moore. And it was a sitcom called Mr. Smith, about an orangutan that became brilliant and could talk, and it was with love. The brilliant Leonard Fry, God rest his soul, and Terry Garber, and a couple big orangutans. And so that was I seem through my life to have worked with like every major animal in Hollywood. I don't know what that says about me, but it seems over the years I have worked with every kind of animal there is. So that show ran on NBC for, I guess, just 1 year, 13 episodes. And again, that was in about, I think, 85 or 86. So then I went back, and then, as you said, I did a couple episodes of Fall Guy, Murder. I did all kinds of, I was Cheers. I was doing all kinds. I was, building a resume in Hollywood. And Captain Power, my agents called and said, there's an audition for this science fiction show called Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future. And I was like, what the heck is that? And so they said, well, here, we'll send you over the sides. They want to see you. They're gonna tape you. They're gonna put you on tape because I guess they're doing it up in Canada. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went down and I read the sides, and I thought it was kind of fun. And I remember when I went to the audition, it was at a place down on Hollywood Boulevard, right by the Grauman's Chinese Theater. I remember it was right there. And I went into the office, and they had all the drawings up of all the the space, the power suits, and then the droids and everything. And I was like, what the heck is this thing? Because I'd never really seen anything like that. And I went in and I taped the scene, and I felt pretty good about it. And I remember I came out, and usually in those days, you called your agent afterward, how'd it go? And I said, I felt pretty good. I thought it was, I thought it went okay. And so I got back home, and my agent called. I can't remember if it was that later that day or the next day, and said, you got to go back and do it again. They messed up the tape. It didn't work. And I thought, because I felt really, and that's the last thing as an actor, you thought, at an audition, it clicked. It all worked. It all
you knocked really it out
good.
Already.
Yeah. You felt like you knocked the ball out of the park, and now they're taking it back, So I thought, oh no. So I went back and I did it again. And, one thing led to another. And, sure enough, they called and said, you've got the part, you're going to do it. And you have to be in Canada in 2 weeks. I was like, wow, how long am I going to be there? They said, you're going to be up there for months. And so luckily I had some friends, and I had a couple cars, and I get rid of I sold my car. I thought, well, if this goes, I'll be living up there.
Sure.
So, I had to get out of my apartment lease and just kind of pack up my life. But luckily I got to go back. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and I had planned a trip home to see my family. And it was right then. So I did all that, and luckily I have a couple great friends to this day. One guy named Steve Fox, who took care of getting rid of my cars for me. He was just so great, so that I could go to St. Louis. And I was so excited. My parents were, nobody in my family was ever in the acting business or any kind of show business or the theater or anything like that. There's kind of a blue collar middle American family, and I was the weirdo kid who wanted to be an actor. And they were always so supportive. My parents to me in my career. I was so blessed because I started acting in high school with a group of people who we all loved it. We all just loved acting, and I was always so lucky. My parents never, said, well, maybe you ought to, do you ever think maybe you should try to do this, to have this, to fall back on? Or they were never that way. They were always, you can do it. Go for it. Do what you got to do. And so it was so much pleasure. I remember I went and I bought a couple bottles of champagne, and I got everybody into our living room, and I announced that I had finally landed a series. I was the lead in a series, and that was just the greatest. It was, and I said, I'm going to be in Canada next week. And they were, oh my gosh. So that was it. I went back, packed up, and we headed up, and I was, I got to Toronto, and I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know anybody when I got up there, and luckily everything worked out great. And we met all the cast, and we all got along from day one. It was, and not only just that, but the crew and the production staff and everybody. It was a real special type of show where after doing many of shows over the years, you look back and realize you were lucky. Those come along once in a while where everything was just fun and everybody worked hard together and everybody had the same goals and was excited about what we were doing. So that's how that all came about. I guess that's a long-winded answer to your question.
Well, I'm curious. I mean, you mentioned how when your people first get in touch with you and they say, we got this thing, it's Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future, and instinctively you're kind of like, well, that title is, what is that? At what point were you aware in the early goings that this was a toy line based, kind of cross promoted thing, or did you find that out later?
No, I think, I'm pretty sure from the beginning that, part of the exciting part was that, the Mattel was going to have a toy line, and you're like, wow, really? Because, that certainly added to and at that time, those type of things with Ghostbusters and all that was a good thing to have attached to the show. I thought that would certainly help the show along. I came to disagree with that thought not long after we started the production, though, because I'll be honest, I thought I was going up there to do a kids sci-fi show.
Sure.
And when I got that script, and I can tell you, I was reading that script when I first got it, and I can remember sitting in the place that I was living there when I first got there, and it was probably midnight, 1 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I was, so just nervous about, we were going to start filming, and all of a sudden, I realized that this was not a kids show, or at least not any type of kids show that I had ever seen yet. It was a very dark. It had very adult themes in it. It had relationships in it. It had all kinds of conflict, not just your one dimensional, but very deep. And I realized that I had to go in there and buckle down and it was kind of like if you're doing a Shakespeare play, you got to buckle into that thing, and this was no different. And I realized that quite quickly. And luckily, so did everybody else. We got on, and once we got in, we saw the sets, and we saw the costumes, and we saw the lighting, and we heard the words coming out of it all. We realized this is a show. This isn't a kid show. This is a show. This is a story, and it's a very intense and very interesting story. So that was I think what kind of got us all excited, and as far as the toys and all that, we had nothing to do with it. I mean, it was never discussed. We never cared about it. We didn't care. I mean, honestly, after hearing, oh, Mattel's coming out with a toy line, my only thought was, cool, then that means good. We'll have money to keep this thing going,
Sure.
because it was an expensive show to make. I mean, I think one of the more expensive shows of its time.
Yeah.
I think well over $1 million an episode. So, that's a lot of money back in 1986, 87. So we were excited that Mattel was putting money into it. But as far as us thinking about toys or kids show, honestly, it never entered my mind. I mean, I didn't. It felt the same as if I was doing the A-Team, or if I was doing, whatever movie or whatever. It was a story, and it had nothing to do with, oh, remember, it's for kids. That
Sure.
just never entered into my mind ever.
Well, and to that point, what you bring up about not playing it for a kid audience, I mean, I think certainly I watched it as a kid, and that's what I appreciated about it, is that here was a show, it wasn't speaking down to me.
And I've heard that through the years from so many people who were kids at that time, and that's one of my really favorite things to hear, because we never ever it like I said, it just for us. We didn't. I was playing that for as if it was sitting in a movie theater and a bunch of adults were in there, because that's what the writing was. That's what the story was. So how could you not make it that? It was so brilliantly written, and that's the whole thing. I mean, I got to. I got to dip the paint in the brush, but the brush was controlled by, was the painter was certainly, the guys writing it and producing it and directing it, and the visual of it and the sound of it. And, and then of course you bring in now all of the technical things that, we broke so much ground in computer animation. And the cool part was, Zachy, that we did it all under one roof. I have never had an experience like that. And that's what I think makes it so special, is that we, all of that computer animation and the miniature filming, all of the everything was under one roof. We filmed there, we ate there. The production people were there, the animators were there, everybody was under one roof. We were a huge, big group. It wasn't just like, you walk in and you met the Foley guy, 6 months down the line. No, I knew that guy from the first day because he was right there.
Wow.
So it was a really cool experience that way, as far as an artist and being amongst other artists and we were all collaborating to paint this masterpiece, together. Yeah. That's what was fun. To me, that was, just so exciting. And then to, get to see what all the computer characters were going to look like, and you spend a lot of time just there'd be a big pole with a face on it, and that's who you were talking to, and then you'd get to actually see that's what Sauron looks like. Oh, cool, So it was it was from the day one, it was a different feel. It was a different type of acting, and it was a very demanding role, and not just, and I probably had it easier than most, this definitely more than Sven or Peter or those guys, because those costumes were unbearably hot. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you.
Much more elaborate.
Poor Sven, he did. I mean, at least I could sit down. I mean, that guy, they had to build him like a plank that he had to lean against. He couldn't even sit down. And we do 12, 14-hour days, so.
Goodness.
So it was amazing.
Well, and as far as you shaping your character, and I mean, I'm curious. I mean, Gary Goddard created the show. The Bible was by Mark Scott Zickery. JMS was the showrunner, I'm assuming. Who was your point of contact with as far as collaborating to sort of shape your vision of how you were going to make
Well,
Jonathan yours?
right in the beginning, well, first of all, foremost, they let most of the time I got to that was put on me to create that character, and that's your job as an actor, I think. Now,
Sure.
may I also say that really luckily in the very beginning, I know that J. Michael just came around and he came into my dressing room and sat with me, and we talked for I bet you at least 45 minutes about character and about how he saw and where he saw him from and what that was wonderful. That certainly helped. But I think the writing and I got to develop a lot of that on my own. And then the cool part, and it's always that way I think if you look at any successful television show, if you go to year one, you go to any syndicated, whatever show, pick one and go to find an episode from the first year and then find one from like 3 or 4 years down the line, you'll find that in the beginning, the actor is trying to bring the writer's words to life in the manner that the writer has written it. And then as it goes on, and you start playing, the writer starts watching you, and then it's kind of switches. He starts writing for the character that you've turned it into.
Sure.
And it's this wonderful blend of taking them listening to us and watching the actor, and us also making sure the written page gets done. And then they start writing for you. They start writing for not just Jonathan Power, but for Tim Dunigan playing Jonathan Power. I know but that's what's really, and that's what happened very quickly, I think, at least for me. My character, it was, if you watch the show, I mean, he just wasn't. I mean, he's nothing like me personally at all. But yet there's, people say, oh, I see a lot of you in him. So I always think that's a great compliment because, you're not like that, but boy, I see you in it. Well, that's great.
Sure.
That's good because you have to do that. You have to bring, you have to filter through yourself and bring that character. But, I like I said, I grew up and learned and trained in the theater, and I've always, you get into your mind and you start developing ways to develop characters. And for me, I would start at exactly the same place, no matter if it was a role on Fall Guy or I was doing a Shakespeare play or whatever it was. I would start with, okay, is this character a painting or is this character a statue? That was my thing. And what that was, is this a character that is a blank canvas and I'm going to have to find the right colors and palette and movement and flow to add to that character? Or is this a block of granite and I've got to chip away and find what that art underneath what is there? Now, that worked for me. That in my head, that worked. I know I've talked to other actors about that, and they've just said, "Well, you're an idiot." That doesn't make any sense. But that's okay. But that's how I always looked at character. I would start there. I would just, okay, is this a painting or is this a statue? That's how I always started characters. And so you learn to do that. And then what's cool is then all of a sudden you're chipping away. It's this, and now I'm finding that character, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, now I've got to add color to this also. Yeah, and so it's just a process, but it always comes down, believe me, to the script. Sure. It comes down to what you have to work with, and also the other actors that you're surrounded with, and that's where I don't think. I don't believe or there's still no major award for casting. Now, they might have changed that. I'm not sure because I've been out of the business for a while. But I've always been fascinated that there's never been an award for casting because casting is a true art. It really is. Somebody who's a really good casting can make something work. because
Absolutely.
let me tell you, those other actors around me. And what happens is, you sit at home every night and learn your lines or whatever it is. And when you start learning lines, you're thinking, okay, that's it. And then Peter's going to say da 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 da, right? And then I say this, and then I'll do that. Oh, and then I feel, yeah, okay. And then I'll turn and I've got to address this with him or what. Well, you come in and you're ready to go, and then all of a sudden that other actor, they're not doing what you have in your head. They're doing what they have in their head.
Sure.
So all of a sudden now there's where the fun starts, because you have to listen. And all of a sudden, then that's where you have to trust your instincts to just react to what they're doing and let it flow. And that's what happened on Captain Power. We all just kind of found those characters and worked together, and it just gelled together. And I love to this day to still watch those scenes, and it brings back great memories of not just a great show and all that, but wonderful time, a personal. I was getting paid to just do something I would have, honestly, I would have done for free. It was so much fun. I don't tell them that, of course. You
Well,
did. But
Well, and can you go into that a little bit? I mean, obviously the chemistry that you had with all of your fellow castmates, specifically, I think about Major Hawk Masterson, Peter McNeil. You guys had this terrific friendship, and almost this. He had a fatherly, protective relationship with you, which I thought was really interesting. What was your relationship like with Peter McNeil? He just seems to me like somebody who would be a blast to hang out with.
he was. Peter and I ended up when we got done filming Captain Power. Peter and I and another gentleman who was actually was my stand-in. We all went together to Jamaica for a week. I mean, I went to vacation with Pete because we were very good friends.
Wow.
Sven and I were great. Sven and I, we had a day off and we went to Niagara Falls together. You want to see two big lunks down at Niagara Falls together? I know the people were thinking, what the hell are those two doing? But yeah, I mean, you have to understand that, we would work 12 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever it was. But we hung out together. I mean, on the weekends when we'd go to dinner together, or we'd go out and do something together, or whatever it was, and we were very close friends. And the relationship with each one of those people was a real relationship. I mean, they were my friends, and Peter was somebody who I would go to for. I was a young man, and at that time, I was, I had met a woman who I ended up marrying, and I would talk to him about that and about life and about, marriage and moving forward. And sure, of course, because I trusted him and found his opinions valuable, and that's makes whether we did the show or not, those things all happened. I mean, we really did. As I started way back in the beginning of this conversation, we were blessed to have that kind of camaraderie. I've been on shows where we work together, and then when it's 5:00, that's it. We go our separate ways. We'll see you on Monday. I'm not going to see you over the weekend. I'm not going to call you. Or when the show's over too, we'll get, I never talk to you again, and it's kind of like friendships, I'm sure you have the same thing. You have those friends that you may not talk to them a lot, but when you see them after about 5 minutes, it's like, it was just like we've been together the whole time.
Absolutely.
And I've talked to Peter, and I've seen Jessica, and it's exactly the same way. We share a bond on that, and it'll last the rest of our lives for sure.
Now, so the show aired in syndication. So and correct me if I'm wrong. You knew you had at least 22 episodes guaranteed. It wasn't like you shot 13 and then waited for the back 9.
That's correct. We knew we were doing 22. So,
but now, how far in advance to airing did you start filming?
Let's see. Did you say we started airing in September?
It was September 1st, 87. Yeah.
We had probably started in, I would say, June. That's when we started everything. Up in Toronto. Okay. So we've been together. It took a few months to get it all going, and they'd bring in for the first couple I think we had the same director, but then, you brought in different directors, and that changes everything too. Remember, the director comes in, each director has a different idea, a different look. They would want different things from the characters, different types of things from the characters. The scripts would want different things at different times. Yeah, it was a great collaboration on all fronts. But we had a few months jump ahead, and it was, it took, I'm trying to remember, but I'm pretty sure it took us about 10 days, maybe more to do an episode, depending on how much animation there was in it.
So at what point, but obviously by the time the show premieres, there's the big, multimedia, marketing campaign. At what point does it suddenly become real for you, during the sort of the marketing period? Is it when you see yourself in toy aisles or?
I can remember going to in Toronto to some mall, and it was, I guess, right when the Christmas season was starting. Mm-hmm. And I remember walking, and they had a pyramid of all the toys.
Wow.
And that's when it kind of hit me. But that's also when all of a sudden we for the first time started hearing about all of the bad press about the toys.
Sure.
And all of a sudden it seemed like nobody wanted to talk about the show. They wanted to talk about the toys.
Captain Power is as advanced as anything you'll see on television, with its groundbreaking use of computer animation and live action. But in one way, the show may have been damaged by its own technology. When the Mattel Toy Company joined forces with Landmark Entertainment to fund Captain Power, it added interactive toys to the mix. It's an idea Mattel had been developing for many years. It worked as toy sales and syndicated ratings soared, but there was a drawback for Mattel and Landmark Entertainment. Children's television activists were immediately critical of the idea.
To really watch the show the way it's designed to be watched, you have to go out and buy something to use with the program. That is the height of arrogance.
I remember that really angered me, and because whether anybody, I guess everybody's aware of it, we had nothing to do with the toys. I never got a cent. I mean, it's not like I made any money on those toys. We never got a dime out of those toys. They wanted to use our images. I remember when we started talking about maybe the second year, and they were going to go into more like, sleeping bags or whatever it was. I don't know, but they were going to actually use our faces on the stuff, right?
Sure.
And so
because up until then it was kind of generic.
It was a pretty generic. I mean, I always, one of my claim to fame in my acting career is not just playing the Captain Power role, but I now in my business I do mortgage business, and a lot of my clients are actors and directors, and when I've done a lot of pretty famous actors and not so famous, but I always kid around with them, and if they have a big movie or something, I'll say, do you have an action figure? Yeah, well, come back. Why don't you get back to me when you get one of those, okay? And then, it's one of my claims to fame is, I have an action figure. I have, that's pretty, I just think that's like the coolest thing in the world.
Sure.
Of my career, it's probably, other than being I was once recently just one of the questions on Jeopardy. It's probably the second, other than that, it's the highlight of my career.
What was the question?
Oh yeah, I was sitting at work. This is maybe a month or two ago. I can't remember. And my brother called me from St. Louis, and it's 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's my brother's called me at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Something's wrong. Something's bad usually, So I said, "What's the matter?" And he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm at work. What are you calling me for?" And he said, "You were just a question on Jeopardy." And I said, Rob, it's not funny. I'm busy. And he said, "No, I'm serious." He said, we were sitting here watching Jeopardy, and we were, reading or whatever. And he said, "Also, we heard your name," and his wife and Delia, and he looked at each other. They said, "Did they just say Tim?" And sure enough, I was a question. It was about the A-Team. And it was about. It said the question was something like, "I pity the fool who doesn't know that Tim Dunigan played this part, not Dirk Benedict, on the A-Team pilot." So, that was, are you kidding? I
Did
thought
they
that was,
get it? That's the question.
oh, and the guy did. He got it. So I thought that was pretty cool. Well, he wouldn't have known my name, but he knew that Dirk Benedict played the part.
The context.
Sure. So, so those toys, they were all fine and great, but then the only time they came and talked to us about it, they said, okay, well, we want to, buy the rights to use you on these. And so, I'm thinking, all right, well, here we go.
Sure.
Now we're going to make a little dough here. And I think, honestly, Zachy, I think they offered us $5,000 Canadian. And at that time, Canadian dollar was worth 30 or 40 cents less than the American dollar.
Wow.
And we just said, are you out of your minds?
Yeah.
No, of course not. No.
Yeah.
And I think as a group, we all ended up, getting a lawyer and, saying, and they ended up saying, no, then we'll just use genetic people and we don't care. And,
yeah.
And that kind of was it. I mean, we never, there was not a lot of, and remember, we were getting beaten to death about the toys and about, I'd get questions like, well, do you feel, how do you feel about teaching children to kill? And I was like, what are you talking about? And by today's standards, I mean, really, look back, it's ridiculous that these little jets, you shoot at and they were robots. They weren't, they were just robots, and you shot at the little thing on their chest, and the little guy popped out of the thing. To this day, I just didn't see what the big deal was. I grew up, in that era when you played combat or whatever it was, or cowboys, whatever it was.
Yeah.
It didn't seem to, I wasn't, but to be, all of a sudden we're part of this trying to teach children about war and killing and I kept trying to say, but have you watched the show? And most of them had not, by the way.
Yeah.
Most of those people complaining about the toys had never seen the show. And I said, because if you watch the show, you're going to see that preservation of human life is what it's all about. It's about how valuable and how precious life is. That's what the show is about. Yeah. So that, after the toys, I didn't want to have anything to do with the toys. I did one promotion. I went to Pittsburgh on my day off, and I put on that Captain Power outfit and stood there in a toy aisle. And I just remember I was so angry that I had to do this. And as soon as those kids were, I just lost it. They were the greatest meeting and seeing those little kids, and they were so excited and taking pictures with them. And it was absolutely wonderful. I just loved hanging out with those kids. So that part of it turned out to be pretty cool. But I told them after that I wasn't going to promote the toy anymore. Not even, no way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and just picking up on what you were talking about the message of the show, my mind is drawn to an episode called "The Mirror in Darkness," which is about the Captain Power imposter.
Yeah.
It was played by David James Elliott, by the way, from
Dave Elliott, yeah.
And I just, I knew we were going to be talking, so I was kind of doing my research and getting caught up. And I was watching with my oldest boy, who's now 8, which is exactly, by the way, how old I was when I saw it.
Oh boy.
And first of all, the show is working it still works, you know what I mean? They're entirely engaged, but I came away specifically from that episode being like, this is a great message, because it's exactly about preserving life. It's about hope. It's about all of these things that we hope to impart to young people. So certainly, I as an adult, I sometimes look back at some shows or properties or whatnot that I was exposed to as a kid, and I kind of say, I don't know how I was allowed to watch that or something like that. I don't feel that way at all when it comes to Captain Power, because I think it's right in the wheelhouse of Davy Crockett, who you also got to play, and et cetera. That same classical morality.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly was something about the character and the show that all of us strove. We would strive to make sure that message got out there, because we felt even back at that time that maybe that was what might be lacking And that certainly was, as I said, the morality, and that's why I think the thing about the toys made me so angry, was because they weren't watching the show and what the message of the show was, and the morality and how precious life was, especially to those characters, and especially to Jonathan after he's lost he has no family. These people are his family. That's all he's got left. Especially Hawk, especially Peter. I always thought of him as the closest to John.
Yeah.
Until, of course, then Pilot, of course, that whole relationship there. But I mean, and as you've mentioned, and people have talked about for years, when you kill off a major character like that, that's nowadays they talk about it all the time. That character got killed. We did it in 1987.
Yeah.
So those things. But again, her being killed off certainly wasn't in the plan. But Jess decided that it was something she needed to move on from, and that just happens. But they certainly could have brought in somebody else to play the part, right?
Sure.
I mean. But they chose not to do that. I mean, that's it. And remember, that's 1987, and we're selling toys. That is a bold. And for me, I was so proud of that they fought and they sold that they got that done. I certainly was, didn't want her to leave.
Yeah.
But we all have to make choices, and it wasn't right for her. And we supported that. We were certainly unhappy, but we certainly supported her and her moving into and I mean, look at her career. Of course, it's been brilliant. So.
Well, and you're talking, of course, about the final episode of the show, which I'm assuming at the time you didn't think was the final episode of the show.
No, we I didn't see. Honestly, I've always been really good, Zachy, about going, look, we're gonna do 5 episodes of this, and it's gonna be done.
Sure.
Get on the phone. Look, start looking. I'm gonna need a job in about a month. That I've always been, and I thought that we were back for sure. I thought we would be back for sure. I really did.
Yeah.
I was shocked that we didn't. There was, the scripts were done. Scripts were ready to go.
Yeah.
I saw one, but I didn't wait. I was never one to really, I just concentrate. What's this week? I want to work on that. And then that's all, the next week, give me the script. And because mainly too, because things are going to change as it goes anyway. So, but I was shocked. And of course, very bitter about the reason was because Mattel pulled the plug.
So it was not the ratings.
The ratings weren't bad at all. Depending on where we were.
Sure.
Some places we had great time slots. Other places we were on at 2 a.m. or something.
Sure. Well, and I can speak to a little bit of that. My initial exposure to Captain Power was during summer of '87. So this is before the show has started, and it was a commercial for the toys, and it was the jet fires at the TV and it shoots back, and that whole thing. And at the time, as I alluded to earlier, my family we lived in Saudi Arabia. We used to visit the States every summer. So the next summer was when we came back, and the show was already finished by then. I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
But I bought all the toys and everything, and I saw one episode stateside, and it was Sunday morning at 7:30 a.m.
Yeah, I think what, Zach? I think that was our time slot here in Los Angeles.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure that was our time slot. So yeah, I mean, we didn't get, but in the places where our time slots were really good, our ratings were very good.
Sure.
And actually also, if you go back and look at the toy sales, they were great. They were really good. It's just that I think right before that, I think it was He-Man. Those toys had sold so big that they compared it just to that. But if
they
you
set
look
the bar
at,
too high.
They set the bar way too high. If you look back, those toys sold actually really well, really well. So Again, I don't try to act like I know anything about manufacturing toys or what it takes to make a profit or whatever. And I understand it's a business, and their job and Mattel, I understand their job was to sell toys. That's why they were doing it. But
Sure.
it's too. I just found it sad that not one person could in that company said, "Hey, you know what though? Have you watched the show? We should keep this going. This is or somebody from outside said, "Hey, let's pick this up and keep it going." I think this is we're onto something here. That's the part that made me sad because it really I thought was I thought every show was better than the one before it as far as everything involved the script the acting, the lighting, the directing. I thought we were all getting because it was a hard shoot. It was a really tough shoot. It really was. I've had them, other ones, playing Davy Crockett was no breeze. Take it from me, but compared to that, and luckily I did it right afterwards. So, people be complaining and I'd look at them and go, "What are you talking about? This is nothing. This is great. We're outside for God's sakes. We're in fresh air. What do you mean? So what that we got to run up and down a mountain for 12 hours? Who cares? Sit down and you're not sweating 17 pounds of water a day. I'll tell you that much."
Well, and just going back to that last episode, I'm not saying anything original here because I'm sure you've heard it time and again. But when I saw it, and as I mentioned to you, so I saw the entire series now after I went back to Saudi Arabia. So they showed the whole series over there.
Oh, really?
They showed it there, and not only that. You could buy Captain Power gear at toy stores. I mean, Captain Power was everywhere there. So I have no idea if you're aware of this, but it was huge in the Middle East.
No, I did not know that. I do know. I can tell you that over the years, I still to this day correspond with a young guy in Russia.
Wow.
He was a kid and he watched the show, and I've been in contact. I've talked to him. He's now a translator for the Russian government. He translated for Hillary Clinton when she was there. He was a huge Captain Power fan. I've talked to people in Sweden and Norway, Spain, Japan, everywhere. I still get emails to this day. I still get emails. Germany, all over. No, I had no idea, and that's so for me is amazing that it really was that popular in those. It was very popular over there, So no, we had no idea. We didn't know really anything because we were living in our own world. I mean, all we did was go to work and go home and go back to work, and we were in a big old big bus depot in Toronto. And it was no air, and it was hot. And, we were filming in the summer, and it was boiling hot inside. And those suits were made of neoprene, like wetsuit material. And honestly, you would have to drink. I would drink water all day long. Just constant. And I don't ever remember, stopping to go to the bathroom. Wow. I mean, it just was ridiculous. And then, of course, I went, every day at lunch. I know I've told this before, but it's. Every day at lunch, they'd call lunch. I'd get out of my costume. I'd go run 6 miles.
Wow.
And for two reasons. Number one was because those suits were terribly unforgiving, number one. And number two was just to get out into the air and to relax my mind some and to keep in shape, and because it was a tough, and also, we would Velcro all that armor. And after, 10 hours, your blood flow would start to, it would start cutting out, you'd start losing feeling in your hands and all kinds of stuff like that. So I would, I had 1 hour and, it certainly was a motivator to run fast. So I was really in great shape. I was running every day and God loved the makeup people and costume people. They never, they certainly could have complained to me about it, but they never did. They always, I'd come back, I'd jump in the shower. There was a shower and makeup would redo all my makeup again and my hair for me. And they'd get my clothes ready for me. And they were always really nice about it. It always meant a great deal to me.
Well, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the final episode as far as your performance, in addition to obviously Jessica Steen's. But I mean, I think what makes that death work is how you react to it.
I was never happy with that scene. Jessica blew my doors off on that scene.
Jennifer, come in. Pilot, do you read me? Come in, Jennifer.
John?
Jennifer, hold on. Hold on, we're gonna come.
No. Stay clear. The auto-destruct is no good. I have to blow the power source. It's the only way.
We're on our way to get you right now. There's another way to do it.
It's too late. I'm all broken up inside. Stay clear. I'm sorry we never got to finish our talk.
Jennifer, don't.
I love you, John. So much. Goodbye. You think of me sometimes.
She was so good. And to this day, I think there was a better take.
Wow.
But that's just an egotistical actor, right there. That's the ego, I think, coming out, because I just, I watch it now and I think, that wasn't bad. It was okay. But back then I thought, I can't believe we're going to let there's a better take in me. Sure. I didn't feel, but now, as you get older, you look at things differently. But I think it's just because she was so good. I mean,
Absolutely.
I had tears in my eyes, and let me tell you, it was right because of her. It was all because of her. And also, it wasn't hard to, at that point, I thought I was going to be there in that chair next year, and she wasn't going to be there.
Sure.
It broke my heart. It did. She was, Jessica was a very good friend of mine, and someone who I loved being with and being around every day, and who I cared about a great deal and still do. But the thought that she was, I was losing my friend off that show, it wasn't hard to get to that point. But when I watched her scenes, oh my God, she was brilliant. She really was good. Wow, she was good.
And it's really, I think, it was revolutionary to a large extent to do something that permanent.
Yeah.
On a children's show. And I, just alluding to what we were talking about earlier, I think that it shows the respect for the audience, because I can tell you, I must have watched that episode, that scene, like, I don't even know how many times as a kid, to the point that, when I popped in the DVD, and I queued up to that episode, I remembered every detail, the music, like everything from that episode, that final episode. And it stayed with me,
Well, thank you. That is such a compliment, not just to me, of course, but to everybody involved in the show. And you're, again, I think that the key is that we never, ever did we weren't doing a kid show.
Yeah.
None of us were. None of the actors, none of the prop people, we were doing a show. We were telling a story, and we were telling a very interesting and very emotional story, not just about these people, but about, I always liked the fact that Captain Power, at the end of the episode, you weren't just, oh gosh, John or Hawk, but wow, are we headed towards that? Or it made you think. It made you, at that time, in the late 80s, the world was a different place than it is now. It was different. There were enemies, and there were things, and there were conflict in the world that could come to that. Now, I don't know about robots taking over, but definitely somebody, fighting for your lives and fighting for your way of life. And that's what we were talking about. And in that, we had wonderful subtexts of relationship, of conflict, of regret, of all kinds of things. I mean, David Hemmings was, never got that first of all, the difficult part he had, poor guy, he never acted with anybody but himself.
Right.
That's a very hard thing to do. And so, David was is a brilliant actor. I mean, Shakespearean. This guy can, knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
But I would sit and just watch him and his inflection and the way he would choose to the musicality of the character. It was, was really wonderful. And there would be moments of, there's and I will tell you, I'm the first one to admit this. The fans know the episodes way better than I do. But there was a cut where you see him, the lamenting and the sadness of this man and the sorrow and the just inside of him, that came through. So and like I said, the cool part is, what did I learn on that show is exactly what we're talking about. You don't need to play down to kids. They get it.
Yeah.
They get it. They know it, and they appreciate it. And that's what I think we all learned is that, you don't have to, hey kids, we're gonna, they understand life. They all, and I would get letters, Zachy, from kids talking about, watching that, and they talk about their home life and problems in their house and how watching that show is the best part of their day. That breaks your heart.
Sure.
That just breaks your heart. And so you realize for that kid to write that to you, you're touching him in a place in his soul and in his heart that it's certainly not HR Puffin stuff.
Right.
It's something much different.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and now after the show ended, you continued to appear in, you made a lot of guest appearances on various shows and whatnot, but you left the industry. I think something like 2002.
I did a couple. I did Crockett. And we did that for, that lasted for one season. And I enjoyed it immensely. And it was an honor to play that character and to, especially after the other people who have played it. It was another long process, again, of being chosen. I went through screen test after screen test after screen test after screen test. And we got into it, and I loved doing it. And I got married. Mm-hmm. And then you're right. And then I just, I just decided, I always wanted, challenges, acting certainly is a challenge. Mm-hmm. But in life, I was getting, close to my 40s at that time. And I thought, there's other things I want to try. I want to do. I want to attempt. Sure. And business was something that was in that direction. It always was. And so I stepped back from it. And do I regret that? Sometimes. Yeah, mm-hmm. Sure I do. Sometimes I do because I loved it. But, I had to do what I felt was right for me. Yeah. Things didn't go exactly like I had planned. My marriage didn't last very long. It was very upsetting and hard time, and just like many other people go through, of course. Sure. But I never, I never was. It wasn't about the limelight or the. I like the work, like I said, I started on stage. I like I can tell you this much. When I would do a play, the saddest night for me was opening night because that meant rehearsals were over. And I loved the rehearsal process.
Wow.
I loved the fact I'd watch it grow and watch it develop and those bonds with the other actors and the other people. And that's the part I really liked. So the parts I didn't like were, having to go do, Good Morning America. Or, I wasn't comfortable with it. Mm-hmm. I'm not. People will say that I'm lying, but I'm not that. I'm kind of a private person, and I certainly am. Wouldn't say I would say I'm outgoing, but I'm not someone who is easily in front of a camera. Sure. That is true. And I wanted to have my life. I wanted to have a life of some other challenges. And so I did that. And but I always kept my foot in it here or there. I would do some teaching. I did a lot of coaching for young kids, which I really enjoyed.
Sure.
And things like that. And certainly, you never really leave the business. I certainly was in it, and my friends were in it, and still are. And now, there's some talks of, I've done some things recently, and maybe we'll continue to do that. It might be a second half of that career down if I'm lucky, and we'll see how that goes. But I never stopped loving what I was doing. I just wanted to try. I just wanted to attack other things that I wanted to attempt to do. That's all it was to it. It really was.
And ultimately, I mean, I think there's something to be said for leaving on with your shield rather than on it.
Yeah, I think a part of that is it. I can't lie. I kind of went out on my own terms.
Yeah.
I left after two. I had two big things, and I thought, okay, if you're going to do this because you got, first of all, if you're going to switch over, you're going to have to be able to support yourself and that. And I had a little, I could live off what I had made for a little bit, and like I said, it took me a while to get through my divorce and kind of get my head back on straight a little bit, because it certainly was an upsetting time for me.
I'm sure.
And I had to learn, about business. And luckily I had a good friend who had a business, who's a very great businessman. And he took me in and let me run a division of his company for a while, where I learned how to do a few things. And then I had, just like acting, it's who you know. I happened to be friends with one of the top mortgage originators in America. We were buddies. I met him through a friend who was a real estate agent. They worked together, and he said, you'd be really good in mortgage and finance. And I was like, are you out of your mind? I'm an actor. And he said, no. He said, look what you do now. He says, I worked this company, and we imported and chocolates and things and put them into Costco's, and I helped him with that, and learned a lot about business. And then my friend said, I said, well, is there a book? And he said, no. He says, just come on in my office and sit there every day, and you can ask questions, and I'll teach you how to do it. And I found what I liked about that business, and I still like, although it's harder to do it these days, is that you truly help people. There's nothing better than sitting across the desk from especially a young couple who they've been told they can't buy a house, and and then you've worked it with, and you've gotten them into that house and on a road, and you're setting them on a really nice path to a good life and to a fulfilling life. That's a very fulfilling, just as fulfilling as doing a great scene or a great play, or to really make when I get a letter from somebody said, you really made a difference in my family's life, and we really thank you. That's a pretty cool thing. So that's the part of the job I like the most. As I said, these days it's a little more difficult because of the changing financial and the regulations. But we're out there, and we're certainly helping, continue to help people, which I really do. I love. I actually love that. That's why I do it.
Well, and sort of as we wrap things up here, I wanted to also touch on a revival of Captain Power that's been rumored for a couple of years now. Now, this was going to be called Phoenix Rising.
That's right. It will be called Phoenix Rising.
Well, I was hoping we could get a status update from you, because I know when I first heard this, I was like, I can't wait, but I'm waiting a long time.
Yeah, we all are, and the people, and Gary and all the guys at Goddard know that. But here, let me just say this: the people behind this now are just like you. They were fans. They love the show. They loved it, and they want to make sure that we do it right. They want it to be done right. So they're taking their time, and they're looking at every aspect of that show and how to make it work in today's world. Roger Lay Eric, Gary, all those guys over there are fantastic. And I can tell you this much: they work to bring that to fruition every day. There have been, I will just say, there has been wonderful movement lately, especially in that show's possibilities and in that becoming a reality. I am involved in it. I'm deeply involved with working with them on it, which I'm honored, just so honored to be. And that's it. It's a the TV and the film business, as you know enough about it too.
Yeah.
It's a cold and dark place sometimes.
Yes, it is.
And it's all about doing what she should do and doing it the right way to make it a success. And that can't be rushed sometimes, especially in a show like Captain Power, because I can just tell you this, from what I've seen, if it happens, it will blow you. It's going to blow you out of the chair. I mean, it is just going to be. I've just sat there and shook my head at some of the things I've seen. So that's it. It certainly is not. I don't want anyone to think that it's just a bunch of talk. It is not. It is definitely a real possibility. But the worst thing, I always say as a lender, the worst thing I can do is overpromise. I could, and I think it's the same way here. Nobody wants to just overpromise and then it won't happen. So we're not going to do that. Nobody's going to do that. They're going to just simply say they're working on it, and the people that they have working on it, I think is why it's going to. I personally think that sooner or later something really good will happen. They are all top of the line people, and they have put together great writing and great concepts. And I think that pretty soon there'll be at least a little bit. They got some new stuff to put out there, but that's not my place to do. But I want to talk to the fans who I know, because I hear from you. Don't give up. Just like Captain Power, don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. That's all I can tell you. Keep your interest. Keep letting them know that there's interest. That never hurts. That never hurts to know that there's an audience waiting for that out there. But I really can tell you that if it does go, it will be a truly a great experience, I think, for everybody involved.
Well, we're all keeping our fingers crossed that Phoenix Rising will rise.
Yeah, I do. Hey, so do I. Hey, I'm a fan, just like you. I'm a fan, and I believe in it. And I've always thought, even this is, as the years have gone, 26 years. It's been 27 years, whatever it is.
My gosh.
I always, I go to the movie theaters these days and watch, the Avengers and whatever it is, and I think, oh man, if we would have had this technology when we were doing Captain Power, and what the cool part is I'm not the only one who's thinking that. So that's what's cool.
Well, and let me just say again, I said this up top. This has been just the most surreal, amazing experience of my life. I wish I could somehow reach back in time and kind of give myself a high five at age 8. Because, it's amazing.
You're very kind, and your belief and your memories of that show mean a lot to me personally, and to all those fans out there. As I've told you, there's so many people who remember that show, and for so many different reasons. But that means a great deal to me. As I said, it was a time in my life, one of the most wonderful times of my life, and now as I turn 60 years old and I look back at those days, sometimes you think, well, they were special for me, but to realize they were special not just for you, and the things that you were doing and putting thought to and care actually translated over into people that you've never met, and that affected them. There's no greater honor as an actor, or I think as a human, than to know that you've touched another life in some way. in some way, that you created a memory, or you maybe steered a young person in a direction of interest and that they believed in, and that they found confidence in themselves to pursue. Those things, that's what matters. As far as all the other stuff, well, I had more fun than anybody should have ever had. But that's my thing, but to know that it actually still today means something to other people and to younger people like you, and growing up and you telling me that you have your children or whatever, that's just, that is a really special thing to hear. And I thank you very much for that.
Well, and if people want to reach out to you, do you have a website or anything like that people can find?
I don't have a website. I tell you what, my business email is public knowledge. I would prefer, though, and I always ask people. I gave you earlier my Gmail address. It is the number 1 T Dunigan, Dunigan @gmail.com. If you, I answer all my own emails. I don't have an assistant. I don't, but if you write, I will certainly. It might take me a little while to get back to you, depending. I do run a business, and I'm old and crabby sometimes, but I do. I certainly love to hear from you. Any fan who wants to write or has a question or wants to tell me they thought I was terrible or whatever you need to do, it's okay. Please feel free to write at that address, and I'm always glad to hear from you. And I appreciate anyone who would take the time to want to do it. So thank you.
Well, and again, I just want to thank Tim Dunigan for coming on and talking to us. If any of you listeners out there have any special Captain Power memories you'd like us to share on our next episode, please do email us. It's moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. I'll be happy to do that. If you're looking to find me online, by the way, you can seek out my website. I'm at zackiscorner.com. That's ZAKIS corner.com. That's also my Twitter handle, minus the .com. And find us on Facebook, facebook.com/moviefilmpodcast. That wraps up this episode of the show, but we will be back in 2 short weeks, and I've got a fun one lined up. I'm not going to tell you what it is just yet, but I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you so much for listening, and